experience with composting, with food waste. Can everyone just give me a little bit of a pulse? Raise your hand if you've ever composted before. That's pretty awesome. We got about like 2/3. And no throwing vegetables into your backyard where you can't see them technically counts, but maybe not really. There is one example where you basically just take all your refuse, you put it on top of your garden bed, and you just cover it with compost. I forget the name of the woman who's done that. So raise your hand if you don't currently compost, but you are interested in starting. All right, see that? These are the. Now, as I'm kind of going through this, I want to orient everybody on kind of what my goal and what the purpose is today, because we can see there are a lot of people here. This is a pretty big problem to tackle, and one, it's easy when you see such a big problem to think, what can I do, and is what I am able to do actually going to make a difference? Well, any big change starts with a small group of people, and we don't have a small group of people. This is a pretty good size of people. So I want everyone to walk away, one, with a sense that a lot of the people that need to be in the room are in here today. And the second thing is the purpose of this is not necessarily to have a lecture on getting into the nitty-gritty of all the different aspects of food waste. It's to build community focused around a problem and then momentum to fixing that problem. So coming away today, recognizing that we all have the capacity to do something about this and that we just need to work together on it. Like, I'm not going to be able to solve this problem. I don't have the time to go to everybody's house and compost everything, So it's all of us really doing a lot of little things that's going to make some kind of change and difference. So fighting food waste is first and foremost a community issue because it's affecting community. And part of the reason why I'm focusing on food is critical to a culture and a community itself. It's the bedrock of how we gather. It's the meal that we eat, where we talk, where we build relationships. And that kind of really points out part of the reason why I wanted to kind of introduce a lot of people who came from Evansville and people from the town is something that really stuck with me through the pandemic was how important relationships were, especially relationships across geographies, across organizations. I saw people getting fed because somebody knew a farmer who had food that was going to rot, and they drove a bus out there to bring it into the community. We wouldn't be here today if Laura didn't invite Taylor into the town hall meeting sometime late last year. And that started this little snowball butterfly effect of getting to know her, getting to know DeAndre, getting to know a bunch of other people in the space that I'm going to talk about a little bit today, hopefully talk with later tonight. Also, so later tonight, after this talk, I've made a little bit of food. We're going to have a little bit of a social hour over at Say's restaurant. It's 2 blocks down that way for everybody else who doesn't know. So it'll be a chance really just to kind of hang out, get to know each other. The food will be free, but the little bit of a suggested donation to the food bank. That was not a knife, although no implied threats. So now that I've kind of helped orient us a little bit, I kind of wanted to introduce myself because there's a lot of people here who know me but don't necessarily know my background or history, and a lot of people that I'm meeting here for the first time in person. So way back, I studied psychology, and what really fascinated me, one, a BS in psychology I think is hilarious just because it's BS. And the second thing, what really motivated me to learn about it was I was really attracted to what motivated people in the workplace, what motivated people in organizations, in change management, and how do you actually lead and affect change. Now, after that, instead of going into the corporate world and becoming a consultant, I shifted everything and went into nonprofit work, and I specifically worked with children. And before I moved to California, I was volunteering to basically connect students who were trying to learn about entrepreneurship with the Network for Teaching of Entrepreneurship, Network NFTE. I was connecting them with mentors. But one of the things that I really struggled with was having a lot of the hard skills to actually build what I needed to actually affect that change. So from there, I moved to San Francisco. I learned programming, I was one on the founding team for a tech company, and I really focused on, because I was the head of customer success and support. And a few things I really took away from my time at the company was culture first. A healthy culture is something that's organically participated in. It's not manufactured, it's not artificially incentivized, which we will often see in traditional kind of corporate structures and things along those lines. And I see a lot of relationship between gardening and the workplace, because when people are set up to succeed, to live and do what they want, you will see that they'll naturally do the things that they want to do, and they'll naturally succeed. And I really think about, specifically with a problem like food waste, what are the risks and what are the opportunities for success there? And I think that is a big problem with how the state has been looking at food, is it's like opportunity cost. It's a cost. It gets collected, it gets put into trash, it gets put into landfills. And I see it as a resource that should be invested in because we can get a good return from it. So after the whole tech thing, I got a little burnt out with that, and I became an artist, and then I moved back to San Francisco. And some of you may know this about me, but my parents had retired here in New Harmony, and I loved the town. So I named the cafe I started in San Francisco New Harmony Cafe, inspired by a lot of what I experienced here. A little bit of foreshadowing my eventual move back to the town. So I've lived here full time now for about a little bit over a year. That is a quiche I made. That's not a stock photo. It's in process. There'll be some quiche later tonight, and if this is a little plug, if you would like quiche and you'd like to buy a quiche, I will donate all the proceeds to the food bank later. So maybe consider that. We'll figure out pricing up there. So I've been working a lot at Say's restaurant as well as at Black Lodge. So I've been firsthand in seeing the food that is the food scraps and the waste that is generated by a restaurant. And now starting on this process, understanding the whole lay of the land, it's something that we all have the capacity to do something about. And then the last thing, if you know me, I have not shut up about my garden and the little things about it, but I'm very much a natural gardener. When looking at the landscape, there's a lot of benefits of not using artificial incentives and deterrents for insects, because when you encourage a diversity of life, you get the outcome that you want without having to do anything. That is generally, I'm you can say lazy at heart or efficient at heart. They're very similar, but if I don't have to do work and things will just happily do it themselves better than I can do it, that's often how nature works. And that's often the thing that we forget about ourselves, is that we're natural. We're part of that natural environment. So a lot of this work and desire to shift and shape the way that we see food, as well as organics, is this return back to seeing things more of a natural way. So I want to introduce a couple of people from the community. I mentioned Taylor a little bit ago. She is the founding executive director of CDFI Friendly, the Evansville region. If you know anybody that's looking for funding for a business or looking to just get anything started, she's an amazing person. She's right over there. Immune to blushing and embarrassment. So definitely talk with her. She's been an amazing advisor throughout this entire process. I also wanted to introduce another person and a partner who's going to help make this happen. So DeAndre Wilson has been, as it says right there, the very first 2 words, he's been a change agent. It took me 3 months to get him to actually say what he did, because he does so many different things and impacts so many things around the Evansville region. So Bedford Collab is an amazing food entrepreneur incubator. It's going to be a commercial kitchen and it's going to fill this gap between people who have ideas and desires and dreams of starting a business based around food and actually getting the step or that rung on that ladder to actually get there. And so these are important parts when you look at the broader economic ecosystem. How do you create those pieces in it that enable people to actually build community and build an economy focused around, one, food and people. And then finally, I want to give a big thank you to Mary Winstead. If you are looking for local artisans who make amazing bread or meats or anything along those lines, check out Local Source. They're a marketplace that connect local artisans, local growers, local gardeners with people so you can purchase from them directly. They also grow amazing mushrooms and then begin and give me all the leftover spent mushroom substrates for gardening and composting, things along those lines. So it's been a lot of people who have inconvenienced themselves, because community is built off of inconvenience, not convenience, that have helped me to this point. And I will be asking some of you to inconvenience yourself through volunteering and other ways to, and even taking on work, because this isn't a thing where any one of us is going to be able to do this ourselves. So I've kind of laid a little bit of the ground work and the lay of the land, so to speak, on kind of myself, the people who have helped me get here. I want to dive a little bit into the problem. So food waste and the problem of organics going into landfills isn't just food waste. There's things called food loss as well. So when you're looking at the entire circle of the economy from start to finish, and this whole concept of circular economy, where once it's finished, you can re-enter the economy. During agricultural production, you see that approximately 1.2 billion tons is lost. And then, of course, during the transition in terms of manufacturing, distribution, all of that, another 370 million tons are lost. And then once it actually gets to retail, wholesale, or food service businesses, we got another 930 million tons that's wasted. So as you can see here, 26%, 61%, and 13% respectively. Now, in terms of that breakup, so understand the landscape, residential is obviously the largest portion of that problem. It is also arguably one of the most difficult portions of that problem. When you look at how to tackle a problem like food waste and you look at the different sectors, there are one-to-many and one-to-one or larger scale and medium scale problems to solve. I'll kind of get into it a little bit, but there are different types of problems to approach. Residential collection can be done in-house. So there are towns in Japan that wanted to deal with their food waste problem, and so they set every single individual up so that their home would be able to actually be the place where they process food waste. And they were able to they went from a 15% year-over-year increase in the cost of processing food waste to, or actually waste, to a 15% reduction in the cost of processing waste, because they distributed the effort to the individuals in the homes. And then those people and those individuals now have compost or organics that they can put, again, into their yard and other things along those lines. Now, looking at the landscape, when how much of what these different categories are consuming, right? So you see on the very left side, roughly about 70% for residential is entering the landfill. Whereas with food service, we got roughly about 90% of the food entering landfills. That itself is a problem. I'll go into that in a little bit in a second. But you can see that food service is struggling compared to other categories like residential. So what does it mean for Indiana specifically? Because those are all national stats, basically giving you a lay of land for the United States. So in terms of the financial impact on individuals, Indiana ranks 22nd, which is pretty good. It's above the middle of the pack, but pretty much about average. So the average individual in Indiana is losing a little bit over $800 a year in terms of just lost food that's wasted, food that's expiring, things along those lines. Now that's a cost that can be recaptured through composting, through bokashi or fermentation or other means. But one of the biggest ways to solve problems, of course, is nipping things in the bud. Now, on average, the U.S. household loses a little bit more than $2,000 a year. And of course, that number for a household in Indiana is about $2,100. Now, of course, you can see some other general stats around prepared foods, dry goods, produce, other things like that. They all make up really big kind of categories. Now, outside of residential, the landscape for restaurants in Indiana, we have roughly about, not roughly, but according to the 2023 census, 13,276 restaurants in the state. The state of Indiana restaurants have about $19 billion in revenue. There have been research that shows that roughly for every $1,000 in revenue that a restaurant produces, they produce about 3.3 pounds of waste. So that gives us a rough estimate that Indiana is producing somewhere in the range of about 60 million tons of food waste a year. Now, when you break the numbers down, the stats down, and you try to get it to Evansville region, the Evansville region produces roughly about 2.8 million pounds of food waste. Now, depending on what you're producing with this food waste, there are different ways to model the actual value of this, using kind of fermentation style called bokashi, which is, again, one of the processes you could look at compost. The food waste that's in the Evansville region is at least $1 million in value. And that's a lot that can go towards municipal projects. It can go towards any number of things, even if it's in a cooperative fashion, just trying to reduce the cost of making food. Because the cost of making food is already astronomical compared to what people are already getting paid. So anything that you can do or that we can do to lower the cost of making food lowers the cost. Anything we can do to lower the cost of growing food lowers the cost of making food, which enables restaurants to be more viable and keeps pillars of the community around, because it's the cost of doing business that often squeezes people out of business. So when thinking about how a community is able to not just solve food waste, but also support restaurants, support farmers, support growers, you're making a community that is more sustainable for the people in your community. So composting-wise in Indiana, there's definitely a lot of good work that is being done to provide facilities, but there is a vast field of untapped or people that are disconnected from this process. So as of earlier this year, there might have been new facilities certified. There are 115 certified facilities. 32 of Indiana's 92 counties have no facility. Posey County, where we're at, does not have a facility, right? There are people that are composting, there are people that are doing the work, but there is no certified facility. I am not aware of any municipal-led composting going on in here around the region, but evidenced by the fact that you all are here and that there's more people that probably wish they were here and all those other things, there's a strong desire for this. People want to actually feel good about participating in the economy, about buying things. And one of the things we'll go into a little bit later is the sentiment that people feel around food waste, around supporting. Good.
What is the benefit of composting? What is the value of the composted material? That's the economic force of compost.
Yeah.
What are the main drivers?
So the main driver for composting, and I'll say just returning organics to the soil, is creating healthy soil. So every time we grow a round of crops and we produce that food, we are extracting nutrients from the soil. Now, conventional farmers will use fertilizers and other things like that to try and restore and return nutrients that those plants need, but there's study after study after study showing that the nutrient profile in food, I think that rower there that works with Anu has something to do with this as well, in terms of returning nutrients into food. So the biggest value that compost has is returning organic nutrients and life forms, because compost is full of bacterial life and other things depending on how you're doing it. It really creates healthy soil, which creates healthier food, which has better nutritional profiles for people. That's what the main thing for me is. And it can be utilized for any number of benefits on farms, gardens, outside of that. Organic compost, like high quality compost, can cost upwards of like $200 plus per cubic yard. Whereas like really bad quality compost is going to be like $20, $50 like per cubic yard. So there is a really strong demand for compost that people can have confidence in, that it's of high quality, that there have been no herbicides, pesticides, or other toxic chemicals designed to kill life added into it. And that is a big problem in composting right now with the collection of landscaping and yard waste and other things like that, is there's basically there's often not a delineation between these are plants that were made with pesticides and herbicides, and these are plants that were grown naturally. And so having composts or inputs, because there are other ways in composting to create healthy soil inputs, having that is really valuable for a lot of the market gardeners that are really trying to, especially if you can do it in a way that reduces costs for them. So the impact of food waste. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the
Yes, that is one of these little bullet points. I'll skip right ahead to that. So there's a few different things, because that does actually touch a lot on your point in terms of like what's the benefit of compost, because one of the other questions that people don't often ask is what is the harm of allowing food to enter the waste stream and enter into landfills. So there's a couple of things, right? It's bad business, first of all. That's the way I see it. It's it's basically missing out on this entire opportunity. Every time food is wasted, it's not just that food that's wasted. It was the gas that was used to transport that food. It was the time that was used to pick that food. It was all of the inputs that went into growing that food. So food that's wasted isn't just food waste, it is economic waste. It's our effort, it's all of that stuff as well. The second aspect is really seeing that organic byproducts are a resource, because even if we get other things out of it, well, it's not a burden, it's an opportunity. So food in landfills harms the environment. So when food enters a landfill, it will rot and putrefy in a way that produces methane gas. And that methane gas encourages the release of greenhouse gases, which, we're not going to have a whole lecture on the damages and dangers of greenhouse gases, but it's something that we want to essentially stop, especially when food waste is one of the single largest inputs in landfills. Up to 22% of municipal solid waste is food waste. That is the second harm. The faster our landfills fill up, the more we have to find new space for landfills. Landfills are not beneficial things for the environment. So they're sources that things are going to take a long time to break down. So the slower we can have that process, the more nature will be able to recover from essentially being poisoned. Because that's what essentially a landfill kind of does. You put all these toxic things in one spot because you don't know where else to put them. So the slower we can do that, the better. And just because it breaks down organically does not mean it's breaking down in a way that's beneficial. So another aspect, nutritious food is grown in healthy soil. We need to provide tools and resources for people that are growing food to grow healthy food. And that's kind of the point when we're talking about compost, is there is a desire for inputs so that the plants have the nutrients and the life, because healthy soil is a living thing, it is not just dirt. Dead dirt is dead, it doesn't produce healthy, nutritious food. And when you create healthy food, that food is more tolerant and resistant to diseases and to pests. This is very much a side note. There is a thing called Brix, which measures the sugar content in food, which also then will relate to the chemical structure of that plant. In the same way that we can't eat bark and our body can't digest cellulose, insects cannot digest certain complex structures that exist within plants. Very healthy plants have essentially a stronger immune system, to use the wrong terms in the right way to describe something. So when we enable people to grow nutritious food and through creating nutritious and healthy soil, that is how we affect a lot of the changes that address multiple problems. One of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this is because through one action, we can solve multiple systemic problems. So just getting this stuff out there will be good. So I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss anything. So one of the other things I want to talk about, and this is something that I would encourage people to have conversations with younger people and ask that young person, like do somebody below the age of 20 and somebody below the age of 30, ask them how good they feel about the economy. Ask them how optimistic they are or pessimistic they are that we're going to see the changes that we need in order to actually have a vibrant, healthy, regenerative, fulfilling community. And so for me, that ties into a big part of this, is creating a community and a society that inspires younger people and sees that we are restoring this social contract that existed for generations. And when looking at the individual experience, over 60% of people in studies have said that they feel guilty when they waste food, right? Everybody is here because they want to do something, and they just need an opportunity or avenue to do that thing. And so instead of just getting like, well, things are effed and yada, 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 there's a chance for us all to kind of come together and do something about food waste. So I love this graphic. I'm going to share the slide deck afterwards so you can actually get and read the nitty gritty. As you noticed, I'm not trying to read paragraphs of text. But there are levels of how to prevent food waste. The very first, of course, is source reduction. So that means maybe buying less food. That's a really good example. Another would be edible food rescue. A lot of people would, and there's some examples I'll share later, but working with places that have food that's going to expire and get them to get that food to hungry people so that it doesn't become waste. Home composting, one of the things that everybody here can do, and it does make a difference. And then you get to some of the other problems that I want to have more conversations about, which are the small scale, medium scale, and centralized composting. Because once you get to like centralized composting and another part, then we start to look at mechanical, or not mechanical, municipal level efforts. Talking about when looking at the second one, edible food rescue, I want to a shout out and highlight a group in Evansville. If you want to support somebody in a group that's doing some good stuff, check out Young and Established. And, for a second I thought it was a question, sorry. Yeah, you're good. So one of the things I want to encourage people is support people doing good things and building community. So if you look up Courtney, the founder of Young and Established, he saw that Sam's Club and Walmart and these organizations were just throwing out food. And he took the effort to collect all that food and get it to people that were hungry, right? And that was the need to feed food drive. So this is one really good example of, and they're not the only ones. The food bank in town does it. Like, these are just one single example. This is just one single example. There's a lot of people that are saving food and getting it to hungry people. And I know just working at SAYS, there's been conversations of like, well, we have food at the end of the weekend that is going to expire by the next weekend, but it's still good. How do we get that to people that are hungry? So these are the kind of problems that we can solve to prevent waste from actually happening and saving good food. That row back there, Anu, one of the other things when you look at the challenges of preventing food waste, transportation waste, food that is lost in transportation. One of the reasons why I'm calling out them is because one, I'm passionate about ways that grow food that are more natural, aka without pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and things that kill life, but also efforts that are providing local grown food and efforts that provide more nutritious food. So these are three ways that, and if you can't tell, Anu is a hydroponic technology to grow food locally. I wish I could get the GIF. I should have asked you guys, but it spins. It's amazing. Check them out. They're here, so feel free to say hi. Most of them raise their hand. They're most of the people that raise their hands. And then another really good example to point out, Mesker Park Zoo. So Mesker Park is one of the two certified facilities in Vanderburgh County to process and compost. Mesker Park, they recognized that they had degradation in their soil quality, their water quality, all of those things. So they went and got a grant to become certified as a composting facility, and they have diverted an estimated 1,000 cubic yards of waste a year. That is an insane amount to stop from entering landfills and other aspects. And the fact that they composted a total of 1,255 tons of waste in just a 4-year span of time is insane. And that is one good example of somebody making a change internally without necessarily needing to do more than just that. That was a big change. And one of the things I want to talk about now is community action. So it can be the individual or the collective action, right? I believe very strongly that people can move together individually or collectively. And that means just everyone knowing that, we should all be composting our stuff. We should all be saving, everyone doing that little drip of water or drop of water in the bucket to fill up that bucket. Now, of course, collectively, that would look like maybe finding space for a community composting drop-off. Community compost piles. It could be starting pilot programs. So if you work at like a school, for example, instead of worrying about starting a big municipal thing, just start a composting pilot program at the school. There's an amazing YouTube video I can share with you afterwards where a school basically incorporated into the lessons for all the students. And they had these, I think they were third graders who raised worms to put into the compost pile. And there were students who didn't want to give up the worms because they liked them so much. They were like, this is my little pet. And so there's a lot of ways to really incorporate all aspects of our community into it, especially with education, awareness, things along those lines. And of course, on the municipal side, right, looking at having those conversations with our town council or the people in Evansville or whatever to say this is a thing we want. So a lot of it has to do with making a voice heard, because when I worked in support, I actively told every single person, be as squeaky as possible. If you want this thing changed, please be as squeaky as possible. I want to know that it's bothering you, right? Because people will make the changes based off of what they're hearing. And so by being vocal about, we want this is an important thing for us, that is how change is affected. And if not, then you're just, I was going to make a joke about annoying officials being a little fun pastime, but one of the amazing things we could do is work with the Posey County Waste District to try and get them certified as a compost facility or find space in town. So this is a lot of part where I'm not necessarily the best person to do all of those different aspects. So if there's something that think I could do this or this is a way that I could help, definitely let me know. I've got some sign-up sheets over there, by the way, to follow up with me. So one of the things I want to talk about specifically is starting pilot programs. So one of the things I did a lot when I was basically running a customer success team, whenever I had a large project to take on, I always started with multiple phases, usually starting with a pilot program and building up from there. The reason why I really value starting pilot programs is because, one, if you work with the most passionate, vocal people, I always would ask people who complains the most and put them in the program. Because I want to know what the problems are. So before implementing, for example, a town-wide composting program or a regional-wide composting program, if you can identify the problems ahead of time, if you can get it absolutely smooth, get it operating perfectly before doing a large-scale rollout, you're going to see more people adopt it. Because the biggest reason why people don't adopt a new habit or don't change in a way that a group is trying to change is because they hit an initial frustration. And that initial frustration just sets them off course. So when looking at the community level, I'm thinking about awareness and education campaigns. It's not just necessarily, hey, this is a pilot program to collect, because in order to actually address the food waste problem, we need to hit a small critical mass of people that know about the problem. And education is really important because when people have questions, they need to be able to ask people that they know about that problem. And so if you're designing effective awareness and education campaigns, you're trying to highlight the most vocal people, the most connected people, people that are leaders in their communities or organizations who will be able to share that knowledge with them. So on the community level, that's also what I kind of was mentioning earlier in terms of setting up compost collection sites, or even a house-to-house compost kind of collection program on a small scale first. And when you start with a pilot program, it's much cheaper than all of a sudden say, hey, let's buy a truck that's going to do all these things before we kind of get anywhere close to doing that. Now, on the commercial level, this is something I'll talk a little bit more about, but I'm not going to get into nuts and bolts. I'm thinking about restaurants, coffee roasters. Hey, Alex. So and other food service businesses that are producing food waste. So in our town, it would be just collecting all the food scraps and processed food and meal scraps from the restaurants and bringing that to a consolidated site. We would also need to educate and train staff at those places on what is compostable and what's not compostable. What should we collect? How do we even collect it in a way that doesn't inconvenience somebody or business so much that it really just gets dropped? And so that's why when we're starting up the pilot program, working with people who are passionate about the program or the purpose, you'll find people who will work through inconvenience and will inconvenience themselves to find ways to make it convenient for people who won't. And so that is the goal of a pilot program. That is how I see what a success is that you make it so convenient and delightful to do that people will naturally want to just follow with it because it enables them to feel good about something and connect with the purpose behind it. And then now looking at the kind of more industrial, institutional, municipal kind of level. This is where you think of a place like Mesker Zoo. Mesker Zoo is a great example of it. They're an institution in that they're so large. UE would be another good example of it. Any university, any high school, any elementary school, large office, corporate campus. So like these are all places that are producing so much waste, especially if they have a cafeteria, that it makes sense for them to probably utilize that resource internally. And they would probably also have the resources to not just collect it, but then process it and then reutilize it, because they also are likely paying for the inputs, the fertilizers, the suppressors, the insecticides to manage the landscapes. So being able to help reduce their costs makes our community more resilient. All of this is baked around building resilient communities through relationships and more effective uses of our resources and our opportunities. Oh, I skipped ahead. One of the other reasons why I specifically am trying to work with and across Evansville and New Harmony is a pilot program for regional relationships, right? Resilient regions are built off of relationships between these different organizations, different groups, and different people. Now, on the municipal level, it would make a lot more sense to test out a program in a town like New Harmony than it would across all of Evansville. It would make more sense to test out a neighborhood in Evansville than all of Evansville to start, in order to identify, well, this education wasn't really effective, or this placement wasn't really effective, maybe we should try this part first. So when looking at the evolution of what tonight will become, there'll be lots of discussions, lots of ideation. Hopefully people kind of that friction of creation, so to speak. And then small scale testing with an idea of building confidence in the process so that we could then do more of a municipal-wide collection to address these problems. So what I'm working on right now, and what a lot of the community people that I've talked about today, is a Southern Indiana Composting Initiative. So the SICI, the name is likely to change based off of input, and this is a collaborative effort, so I'm not holding on to anything. But the pilot program is focusing first on restaurants. This is because it's a lot easier to work with 3 to 5 restaurants in New Harmony and 3 to 5 restaurants and coffee shops and whatnot in Evansville than it is to try and collect food waste from 40 or 50 houses. And so this is one means of that I know that I could actually set up a pilot program to do. The overall goal, again, is to reduce the cost of local waste collection and food collection, and establish relationships between restaurants and ideally the people that are growing their food. Because the producers of food need inputs and they produce food. The restaurants need food and they produce inputs. So it's a relationship that, if it's established, creates a circular economy that creates a relationship between chefs and restaurants and the people growing food, the people making bread, the people that are the local artisans. Again, another shout out to Local Source. It's helping build those relationships that are necessary for community, because community is founded on our relationships between ourselves, between each other. And relationships are only forged when we take the time to be with those people in community. So the more that you can create touch points, interactions, the healthier and the stronger our community becomes. So roughly how it works. I'm not going to get into the nuts and bolts. I would love to have another meeting with anybody that wants to volunteer, support, or be more active in this kind of pilot program to kind of go into more of the details. But essentially, businesses would collect their organics, their coffee grinds, their meal prep scraps, the leftovers from meals. They would collect those in compostable bags or buckets. Essentially, I would go with my truck, pick them all up twice a week. And then Bedford Collab is going to be our hub to process all of this organic waste within the pilot program. And hopefully we will very quickly outgrow our britches there, because that would be an amazing problem to have. But basically we'll use that Bedford Collab as a hub to collect and process all the waste. And then that waste will be turned into healthy soil amendments, either like foliar sprays or inputs. Now, other options are, and this is a thing to look at with the Purdue Extension, using food waste to also feed black fly larva harvesting for chickens. very niche topic. I don't know if anyone here has heard of that. But the goal is to then sell the outputs to gardeners, landscapers, anybody that wants healthier soil and healthier plants. So how can you help make this happen? There are three big areas. Financing the startup costs, right? As I said, I am working at a restaurant and a coffee shop. They can support my bills, but there's startup costs. So if this is something that you would love to see and you have the capacity or means to support in some fashion, that is something that I definitely need help with. Referring potential buyers or being a potential buyer. If you want compost or you want healthy soil inputs, that is something I am looking to provide. I'm doing a CSA style model because we don't have it yet, but we're going to get it. It's a chicken and egg scenario. So having letter, like basically an intention to buy or a CSA style model where you say, I would like this amount, that enables us to then go to potentially the financiers and say, hey, we actually have a sustainable system that is ready to go. We just need X, Y, Z. And also volunteering time. So for if we wanted to do a community-wide like composting site, that's something that volunteers would be able to enable. That's not something that I would be able to personally fit into every single thing that I'm currently doing. So some of these things will only happen if people opt to do something about that. Spreading the word, building awareness. If you know somebody that wants to collect their food waste in a restaurant, Mary's been an amazing resource at helping connect people. That is something that will enable this stuff to happen. This QR code should take you to a form as well as a link to this deck. So if you would like to contribute in some way, feel free to scan that. You also can probably find my phone number and just text me. It doesn't have to be formal. So thank you all for listening to me jabber away on this topic. Any questions? Anybody comments? Yeah.
On the community action deals with the waste, is there any facet of community action that deals with reducing source? Like, for instance, in the household.
Yeah.
I'm curious in terms of what causes that waste in the household. Do people cook too much or what?
It can be a little bit of both. So some of the items that I kind of mentioned earlier would be like dry goods. A lot of it is just not looking through your fridge and not having an awareness of what's going to expire. So sometimes it's really just understanding what you have and knowing that it's going to, when it's going to go bad. A lot of it's adapting your purchasing so that you are more appropriately buying, right? You go to Sam's Club and you get 50 different cupcakes and you're like, oh, I should not have gotten that many. You're going to probably waste, cupcakes are a bad example. I would eat 50 cupcakes. But you buy that jar of something that's way too big that you wind up not using and throwing out half of it later. Those are the kind of changes where you can, on a personal level, deal with the source side. And some of it can be changing your buying habits. So for me, when I go to the farmer's market, I would sometimes get way too excited or ambitious and buy some stuff and be like, I thought I was going to cook that, but it's been too long and it went bad and I feel bad about that. Some of it would be like, so for me, what I started doing is just going and buying stuff that same day. Now, if we had a market where you could do that in town, that'd be a little bit more feasible. So I would love to have, hey, who wants, raise your hand if you want a market of fresh produce all day.
Just come to it.
Oh, wait. Oh, no. I meant like having a farmer's market every day.
Oh.
Yes, the farmer's market is amazing. I meant,
Customers first.
yes, yeah, those are the keys. Yes?
I think to answer this question, I think part of the problem is also food insecurity. So let's say you get a paycheck on Friday,
Yeah,
and you know that you have this amount of money, and you've got 5 kids to feed. So you're gonna go to the store and you're gonna spend $600 to feed those 5 kids, because you know at the end of the week, you're not gonna have any money to go back. But by the end of the week, half your food is spoiled.
yeah,
And so what do?
yeah.
So I think food insecurity plays into that a lot.
Yeah, it definitely can. Yeah, Tom?
Two things come to mind for me. One, what's the CO2 balance of this effort versus landfill?
Mm.
Gotta be justified. The dollar has to be justified. For a certain size community, it would seem to me X amount of land is required to do landfill.
Yeah,
So you should be able to say, what's the population in Harmony? How many acres do you need
Yeah.
to do that? That should all be known in the literature, I would think. What's it gonna cost to run it? And that comes all the way back to the CO2 balance. I don't know what percent of food waste can actually just be thrown in your backyard without creating an environment where insects vector diseases.
oh, yeah, yeah, the
So
proper
that's
method
why
of
you gotta
composting is
certify
important. Yeah.
landfill. But if you talk people, throw your lettuce outside, who cares? It's nothing more than a leaf that falls from a tree. So you could do a lot with what goes to this compost. But I'm very curious for the size of New Harmony, what, 600-700 people?
Yeah, that's
How much land do we need?
yeah. I think, so
Is it an acre? Is it 10 acres?
these are two really good detailed questions. And I definitely think when partnering with the people in the municipalities and all of the departments that are currently addressing it, I would love to talk with them to start to get an idea of this, because I'm not that kind of planner, so to speak. One thing that's important about that CO2 balance, when food waste rots, it produces methane, which is worse than CO2. But there'd still be a balance of like the CO2 from a car going to pick up all that stuff versus that balance.
It's whether it's aerobic or anaerobic decomposition.
Uh,
So it's not that simple.
yeah,
Most
although,
of the organic matter that falls on the earth goes up with CO2.
Yep.
Through aerobic.
and that's the thing with composting as
So
well.
with methane,
Yeah.
that happens when you sequester your organics underground.
Yeah, and one of the things that, one of the reasons why I'm really passionate about using bokashi, which is effective microorganisms, lactobacillus, some other things, I'm not going to go into those details now. It is done because it's an anaerobic acidic fermentation. It's done in a contained bucket. So two things are different between bokashi and composting. You do not have gas release. Composting actually does release carbon dioxide and other, vermicomposting or composting with worms produces like NO3, I believe, or a nitrous oxide, which is like 400 times more potent than CO2. But it is also one of the best forms of compost that you can get for some types of gardens. So when looking at using a fermentation to break down nutrients, two things happens. You retain most of the inputs, meaning that with composting, I don't remember the exact ratio, it's like you start with 100 pounds of organics, you wind up with like 30 pounds of compost, right? Because all of that it's a destructive process, and the gas that is being released into the air, that's all kind of happening. So with using bokashi, there's also another thing that happens. Well, it is enabling us to work with Bedford because we can do it indoors. It also processes food significantly faster. The fermentation process is roughly 5 to 6 weeks. And then if you trench dig it, it can turn into basically soil within another 2 to 4 weeks, depending on what you're doing. And a big difference that blocks a lot of people is now having to exclude like fats, dairies, meats, unless you're hot composting. Bokashi has the process or capacity of processing meats, dairies, cheeses, bones, things like that. Now, the other aspect about facilities, throwing food in your backyard does, disease animals, things like that. One of the big concerns that the state has or government has around the certification of composting isn't just that you're creating a vector that animals are going to go to, like that's going to happen with all composting, and kind of birds will come and fly and try and take stuff in. It is the compost leaching liquid into the groundwater and other aspects, and that bleed off that can happen. So one of the necessities of being certified as a certified facility is being able to guarantee and demonstrate that you're not going to leach the runoff of that compost pile into local groundwater or rivers or other waterways, which is less of a problem in your backyard because you're not going to get to such a, unless you maybe have a well and you're doing a lot, maybe then you might want to worry.
Where do you get a bokashi? How do you?
So bokashi is a term for basically bran that's been inoculated with this combination of microorganisms. The way that bacterial cultures essentially work is there is a dominant strain, and then that dominant strain will set the tone of how they will work. and how they'll interact with other things. They can be degenerative, which is where that really stinky smell with like anaerobic soil, that is kind of that degenerative state. Or something that is rotting is going through this degenerative process. Whereas if you have ever, like there's a tree, there's a log that was in the forest, and it had basically broken down to the point where it was basically soil in between it. And I took a pinch and I smelled it, and I never smelled anything that smelled more healthy than that, right? And so we can smell a lot of these different aspects of it. So bokashi basically is a brand that's been inoculated with a mix of bacteria that will cause fermentation, so like lactobacillus yeast, other things like that, photosensitive bacteria. This combination of bacteria essentially ferments and breaks down the nutrients of that food. Fermentation is also a thing that's happening on the ground floor of soil beds or of forest beds, things like that. So it's more effective in that you're getting a near 1-to-1 input-output ratio as opposed to like a really stark difference between composting. Yeah. So I can definitely recommend. There's I meant to bring my bucket. I have a bucket. I can show you. It's in our garage. So what you'd want to do is get some kind of sealable container, ideally one that has a spigot, because it produces essentially a tea. I'm going to call it a tea. Somebody who knows more would be like, it's not a tea. But basically it produces a liquid that has a lot of the runoff from it, and it produces what I like to call a pre-compost, which is the kind of fermented, like, well, I don't know what to call it besides like the meat. So it's not meat, but and you can basically use that to then add it to other materials to compost it and finish it off to make soil, or you can trench dig it or other things like that. I'd be more than happy to send you a few different companies that produce them, and it's pretty easy to order. The way that it works is you just basically have your bucket, you put food in, you take some of the bran, you add it to it, shake it, press it down to remove any air because it's anaerobic, and then you just keep layering it, and then you let it ferment for about 2 to 3 weeks.
Well, I'm kind of a home composter, and so this idea of making it into a temple, I think, baffles me. It seems like a huge project and it shouldn't be all the composting anyway. But that's where I stumbled.
Yeah.
This, when I was married, we had compost, for 40 years. I'm involved in composting. I didn't do the digging, but you had to have the full bin of scraps, the empty bin, and then the finished bin.
Yeah.
And you dig out the one bit and put it into the empty bin, and that would turn for a while, and then it would
Yeah.
move into. It was a lot of work. It's something I can't do, but since I've been here, I have had just what would you call it? About this little structure in the back of my garden where I just dump all my kitchen waste, and I have never turned it. So am I just like wasting my time and wasting methane and all that?
So personally, it kind of depends on what your pile smells like and looks like and how much you're producing. Yeah, so I think it's.
Squash plants grow out of it. And they're very
Then that's
bad.
probably, honestly, that's probably fine. Like,
It's really weird because it's just sitting there and it never really gets any higher. I've been dumping into it for over 10 years.
well, yeah, because every year it's so. As I said earlier, composting is a destructive process, and what it relies on is smaller and smaller forms of life eating something and then excreting that thing, and until it gets all the way down to the bacteria, essentially. And when you look at healthy soil, the way that plants and bacteria interact, the bacteria and plants actually nurture bacteria cultures. They will release exudates, basically they release stuff from their roots, and that what they release feeds bacteria, who in turn will then use that to then break down other nutrients and things in the soil and feed that back to the plant. There's a similar relationship with mushroom mycorrhizal networks and plant roots. And compost can be an important part of both introducing bacterial life as well as fungal life into a soil that will then create a healthy soil for those plants. Now with your pile and with most people, I don't think most people are creating so much food waste that and scraps. Now if you're putting like bones and meat and other things, that is where I think you get into really dangerous territory. you would want to make sure that you're doing hot composting minimally if you're going to try and do anything with meats or bones or anything like that. But if it's just that lettuce piece, if you cover it with some leaves so an animal doesn't find it, then, I mean, maybe a little bit more than that, then you're actually probably not doing any harm. And if anything, your squash plants are growing out of it, that's the best sign that something's good there.
I got lots of worms.
Yeah, and because like it sounds like basically your input to it is about as much as what it goes throughout the year. So it's a pretty stable sounding. Like when I said an example earlier of just throwing food on top of a garden bed and covering it with compost, that was very like the very hippie level, very organic permaculture side of like, we're just going to do this and not. And like that can be effective, right? Because that stuff, if you're not doing it in a massive amount and you're covering it with compost, that food will eventually break down if you're patient enough. And maybe some animals will dig through it and whatnot. And if they are, then change your process, because that's just adapt and change. You had a question?
Several things concern me.
Yeah.
One, can you expand just briefly on the infrastructure of one of these composting sites? Because there's affluent, there's soil capacity underneath.
Yeah.
There's transportation costs and back and forth. There's animal.
Yeah, you have to guard against animals. That's a big problem.
Mammals.
Yep.
Everything coming in. Weather.
Yep. So infrastructure-wise.
Stand on this a little bit because this science has not been. It's been 60 years we've been playing with municipal composting.
Yeah.
And home small composting, where it became popular.
So Mesker Zoo, for example, they have, I forget, I think it's like I'm just going to say 1,000 square foot concrete pad. It's the wrong number, but they have a very large concrete pad where they'll actually put all of their compost for it to sit. Oftentimes, you'll need some form of large, just like tractor or something to actually flip and turn piles. Because like, as you're saying, it can be really strenuous to have a really big pile and then turn that yourself. Now, when you're trying to process thousands of tons of compost, that is going to mean long, very big rows that are designed to basically be turned and flipped, turned and flipped, turned and flipped. And then, and that's happening probably every like 6 months or so. They're going to need to be monitored and measured so that if you're doing hot composting, for example, or just compost in general, you have to measure the temperature of it. There are more complex ways of doing like static compost piles where you can aerate the compost pile. My favorite one is the Sue Johnson bioreactor, which involves essentially designing the pile in a way where air naturally gets to all parts of the pile itself. But people will have tubes that will run air into the compost pile so that the middle of the compost pile will get the air needed to stop it from turning aerobic or anaerobic. So there are a lot of tools, there's a lot of machinery that would need to be utilized to have this at a large scale. That's why I want to start on a pilot program where we won't necessarily need that degree of equipment before getting started.
I'm thinking of Cleveland.
Yeah.
They basically started a big one for yard waste. Ended up having 4 or 5 road graders come in to turn it constantly, and I don't think they're in business anymore. How viable
So
is as a fiduciary management and responsibility to back to the community?
I think that,
It's all
yeah.
good and well that we have healthy soil. And I'm aware that many of the commercial veggies and such
Yeah.
are lacking in some of the micronutrients that we had years
Yeah.
ago. Because soil is a living thing and changes and matures and dies. It just, the
So
numbers just don't come up for me.
the way to look at, like, I don't know that city's history, so I can't actually speak too well about why that might not have worked. I can speak to some of the problems that I know about with composting. So when you are not discriminate in terms of what you're collecting, if you are not successful in education and building awareness around good practices, you might be creating a bad product. right? And one of the things I've seen from a lot of market gardeners is a distrust of like hay and straw and inputs, because cities are collecting indiscriminately yard waste that's been sprayed with pesticides and herbicides. And if you have that go into your compost and then put that on your garden bed and kill all of you're not going to buy the municipal compost anymore because you can't trust it. So a lot of it is that conversation and relationship and knowledge of what makes the grower successful and getting them to then know that you're doing that for them. Now that then goes to do the education side of it. This goes to not using herbicides, not using pesticides, and finding other means to control pests, because nature will naturally control pests. There are predators for every single pest that exists that don't have environments where they can live. They don't have the pests to eat so they can manage outbreaks of pests because you're spraying indiscriminately, right? So a lot of it comes from a community approach to it, and even if it's not even if it's not a net positive in profit per se, it might be a net positive in terms of the impact that it has. And so, but it really comes down to making sure that we have strong relationships between the people that will utilize compost or soil amendments or inputs and the people that are producing it. So that way we're actually making things that are going to help gardeners, growers, landscapers, farmers succeed in what they're going to do.
Does the Master Gardener program in Vanderbilt, are they still active?
I'm not a part of their
Compost
program.
and providing that to the public?
I don't know. If someone's from the program, they can speak to that. Feel free to speak to it. Okay. Back first. So yes, so then throughout the fermentation process, it would produce a liquid that you'd be able to utilize as a foliar spray. You'd dilute it, use it as a foliar spray, or apply it to soils. It would operate pretty much similar to like a compost tea.
You're using it essentially as liquid fertilizer.
Similar, yeah.
Okay. Does it smell terrible?
So the process, it smells like fermentation. It doesn't. It only smells bad if.
When it's finished, does it smell?
No, I at least in my experience, it will like when you open the fresh bucket, it will smell like it's been fermented. It's like a little bit of a sweet smell. If it smells sickly or anything like that, then that means it's putrefied and went bad for some reason. Which, if you're doing it right, the smell would probably go, if there was a smell on that liquid too, it would go away as the bacteria and other things are broken down after it being sprayed. But that is also another reason why I want to do this as a pilot program, so we can learn those things and adjust those things, right? So if it is having this, the spray, like a farmer who's spraying onto a field that's not by nobody might not mind one thing that somebody who is spraying it on their plant inside their kitchen, those might have two different use cases there. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Paul.
If we have any entrepreneurs in the room or within the network of people in the room, if we have someone that has a product of fresh food on a daily basis for purchase in New Harmony, we could address food insecurity, healthy eating, and food waste all over.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's at least a very passionate minority of people in town who would love to see that. And that's something where looking at the CSA model, just getting an interest down on paper saying, I would spend or allocate, because like there are some really good examples. Graham, can you remind me of the place in Evansville that does like the reusable containers and other things like that you showed me? Yeah, so like if you could just say like I would commit X amount of my food budget to fresh produce, that would give people, market gardeners, confidence that like I can grow those things. But that comes from having a relationship with those gardeners, right? And saying that like we want X number of pound of potatoes, and well, I can grow that, and then actually following through on buying those potatoes. That's the other part. So a lot of this is a chicken, egg, cart, horse scenario, where if we get enough people say that I would commit this, because like if I have people saying like I would buy X cubic yards of compost if it met the standard, then I can know that I can collect X amount of food waste from restaurants. But if I collect 3 tons of food waste from restaurants and I don't yet have anyone to consume it, I then now have to figure out the problem of dealing with my soil amendments. And what would be worse than making soil amendments and healthy inputs is wasting those things. So there's a little bit of this. These are all really good things to figure out if we can sit down, get a list of people who want to buy fresh produce, get a list of people who want to buy compost, get people who want to produce those things, and that's where we actually start to make progress toward those things.
There can be something to be learned from municipal wastewater plants that
Yeah.
press out their bio-waste, treat it for pathogens, and there's a couple of ways to do
Yep.
that. Press it out, dry it, bag it, and sell it.
Yeah.
And the economics of that is well known. No, and I don't know how we press out biomass here in New Martin. I don't know what that wastewater treatment plant looks like. But Evansville, truckloads a day.
Wow. So
That's something to incorporate in your thinking maybe.
this is a little bit more of a sneak preview at probably a larger discussion, but effective microorganisms are not just used to process food waste. That was actually one of the later aspects of it. They're used initially to encourage food growth. When they were initially discovered, it was basically this doctor in Japan had a long history in agriculture and growing, and he was studying individual microbes, and he wasn't really having success with any of the individual microbes. But because they were also benign, he wasn't burning them, he wasn't disposing of them in the correct manner. He was just pouring them all into a bucket. And then he came into work one day and saw this patch of grass had grown like crazy, and he starts to get the third degree to everybody and did you dump something here? Did you dump something here? And then he realized after he asked everybody, he's like, oh, I was the one that dumped something here. So he went. Many of the ways that they utilize effective microorganisms is to deal with harmful microorganisms. So there is a library in Japan where they use it to treat their septic water. And the effective microorganisms are able to process the waste, the excrement from the toilets so effectively that they could, if they wanted to, use that water for drinking. They don't because it's toilet water, so they use it for cars and landscapes. So one of the really common ways of utilizing it is actually treat septic systems, and they apparently clears out the gunk. I only know about this from what I've read about other things, and I would love to actually get into the nuts and bolts and test some of these things out because it clears out sludge from other systems. I printed out a report on this big campus in Malaysia. What they actually do with it is they will spray concrete with it. That's curing to basically prevent I can't remember the name of it, but there's a smell that will happen sometimes and other bad potential bacteria. You can use it for a lot of different things. You can use it for treating ponds that have bad bacterial systems in them and wastewater and other stuff. It's one of those things where I'm just it's crazy all the ways that people utilize it. I am a neophyte in my experience with it. So that's why I want to start slow and move with certainty and not follow the Silicon Valley mantra of move fast and break things. Breaking society and community is not really the best thing. Yeah, Tom.
What does the zoo do for thousands of pounds of concrete?
They use it all internally. They use it internally, so they'll use it on their landscape and other. I don't know the specific ways, but they just utilize it to basically put it back into their soil.
It's not more than they can use.
From what I've read and from what people have told me, they are able to utilize all of it. I don't know with 100% certainty. Yeah.
Botanical gardens use quite a bit.
Yeah, the Messer Park Botanical Gardens, yeah. And they were able to do that because they got a grant from it. And that's one of the things, if you got experience researching and writing grants, you probably would do better than me. Okay, so as I said kind of earlier, I'm going to basically have a little social hour at SAYS. So there are a lot of good kind of questions and conversations. I'm more than happy to stay here for a little bit, but we can also continue a lot of that conversation over there. Again, there'll be some food there, so if you're feeling a little peckish, there'll be something for you. Patrick's probably excited to make some drinks for everybody and chat and see everybody. And I see Ken did leave. So any questions? Oh yeah. The sign-up form, if I don't already have your information and you want to leave your information and sign up in some capacity, go to this form or just put it there, and I'll come get it later, and I'll follow up with you. But again, definitely this has a little form that has some check boxes of how would you actually like to support. If you have my number or know my mom also has my number. You get my dad too. I'm easy to find, hard to reach. No, sorry. Paul, what's up?
One quick thing, what Bill said, when
Yeah.
I made my comment, is the food co-op has accomplished a lot of what I was saying, and that is accurate.
And if you didn't know, Missy, who is involved with a food cooperative, goes up to Indianapolis and gets organic food and brings it down regularly. It would be nice to not have someone drive all the way up there all the time. So with any of the pilot programs, I specifically want to see them cooperatively structured. I strongly believe in the value of cooperative governance, and as well as one person, one vote, not $1, one vote kind of thing. So food cooperatives, specifically, I'm going to mention this, multi-stakeholder cooperatives. Look up multi-stakeholder cooperatives. These are cooperatively owned and governed corporations that, by multi-stakeholder, it means that it's made up of different classes. Easier way of saying, all the groups that are impacted by a cooperative's economic activity should have a membership and a vote in the governance, bylaws, and the management of that company and effort. And so with this, I would want it, all the restaurants would be cooperative members, right? Have a say in how that effort should be run. All the farmers and the buyers and the consumers should be cooperative members. All the residents of the county that we're operating in should be members. All of the people that work there should be members, right? And when you structure it that way, you wind up with outcomes that are harder to get to because you have to inconvenience yourself to listen to other people and to take into their needs into your account. Okay, any other last minute questions for anyone that's not gonna be at social hour? Okay, I'm gonna sprint over there before you all. Thank you guys, thank you. Woo! Hey. I think I need chilies. Thank you.
You have to do it again, I'll bring mine.